Hello, testing. Okay. For the person online, could you do a note if you can hear us? Just send something in the chat saying, yes, I can hear you. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay. Congratulations. That's a big win. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to read from up here, and you can all read along with me. Good afternoon, Airport Advisory Committee members and guests. That's not March, it is April 23rd, I believe, at just a little after noon, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Team Eugene is committed to creating a welcoming and safe community for everyone and a place where every person can experience a sense of belonging. The Airport Advisory Committee is committed to maintaining a respectful environment for all committee members and guests. I would like to start by asking guests at today's meetings to introduce themselves.
I have the mic. Jordan, Business and Innovation, EUG.
Robert, Airfield Manager at UG.
Jody McNatt, Airport Operations.
Regina Peak, Finance and Admin.
Odette, OP, Financial Compliance Manager for the airport.
Jordan Fee, Airport Facilities Supervisor. Alves Stubenberg, Airport Engineer.
Okay. The purpose of this committee is to develop recommendations for city staff by providing an ongoing citizen perspective and review of the airport activity report, airport capital improvement program, airport enterprise fund, budgeting process, and changes to the airport administration policy. As stated in the committee bylaws, members have the obligation to consider the welfare of the entire city and to be fair, objective, and courteous. We have established the following meeting decorum guidelines to ensure a cohesive and equitable environment for committee members and guests. First, guests attending the meeting in person and online are asked to sign in and introduce themselves when asked. Public comment at the end of each meeting shall be limited to 10 minutes unless a majority of committee members present vote to extend the time. The presiding officer shall establish a time limit for each speaker and also the number of speakers. With that, I give the floor to Catherine. With my apologies for me.
That's okay. Thanks, Natalie. Appreciate it. So welcome, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. We have, of course, our new faces from last time, and then we also have Sean Culp joining us. Joshua Rickert, who was representing one of the tenant positions from Blaine Community College, he needed to roll off of the committee just due to some family commitments. And so Sean Culp has agreed to serve in that position, was recently appointed by Rich Hoy, our Public Works Director. So welcome, Sean. I don't know if you want to just say a couple words about what you do at Atlantic. You're one of our tenants.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Sean Culp with Atlantic Aviation. I've been with Atlantic for 20 years now at this location since November of 2024. I look forward to being on the academy and serving as best as I can.
All right. Thank you so much. Welcome. So I'm going to just do a couple of updates and then we'll roll into the March activity report. On the agenda is a legislative update. I don't have a whole lot to tell you other than we're just trying to navigate through all of the various changes that come our way from the agencies that we work with. And so we still don't have some of the key positions filled at the FAA. We're still waiting for a deputy administrator to be named. And then we are still waiting for some of the permanent positions at TSA as well. And then, of course, with all of the Doge work and the retirement options and different things like that, there's been a lot of vacancies and potentially additional vacancies coming at the headquarters level for both the FAA and the TSA. What we're hearing from our regional partners is from the TSA, not so much change for the Portland office. For the FAA, we are seeing some reductions at the Seattle Airports District office, mainly around environmental staff, which is can be a real challenge for us to not have those folks in place because we need to keep our environmental process on time to be able to roll out our projects on time. And especially for hitting some of the funding deadlines that we need to be able to hit. So we know that our Airports District Office folks are doing the best they can to keep up on that, but we are watching that closely as it may be a concern moving forward, depending on, if the ADO is able to absorb that work quickly or not. So there's that. From the statewide level, there's not a lot of aviation related bills being considered this round. There is a jet fuel tax increase bill that is under consideration. My understanding that it is going to move out of committee and then it will get a hearing and those kinds of things. So we're watching that closely as well, because, increase on jet fuel tax does impact our airline partners. At the same time, I also wear another hat as the chair of the State Aviation Board. And the need to fund the Department of Aviation in the state is a real need as well. So, and we actually do get funding from the Department of Aviation through their core grant process, which provides basically matching funds for our federal grants. So there is a benefit that we do receive as a commercial service airport in the state from the State Department of Aviation. So we'll be tracking on that. And then I wanted to give you a little update on our general aviation leasing policy. As you know, we've been working on that for a couple of years now, actually. And just for the benefit of the newer members of the committee, I'll just kind of put it in a synopsis for you. So over the past 5 years, we've really done an A to Z review of every aspect of managing the airport, and especially diving deep around some of our financial and contracting policies. And so one of those pieces has been a review of all of our general aviation leases, our ground leases, and the policy around that. So we had it's a financial consultant that we've used for many of these different reviews that we've done. So they did a full review of all of our general aviation leases. And came up with some recommendations, mainly because there were a lot of variances in all of the leases, and we want to make sure that we are having one policy and all of our tenants are being treated the same. So if they're a like entity, they need to be treated the same moving forward. So it made some recommendations. We've been working with our general aviation community then through a series of meetings, both large tenant meetings, but also in some individual group meetings, and then also with individual hangar owners to talk about different scenarios. And so what we have now landed on is a refinement of kind of the last time I talked to you about this, which is everyone, first of all, retains ownership of their hangars. The transition period is going to be put forward for any of the existing hangar owners. But essentially, now when we move into what's called an improved lease rate, so that'll be after the amortization period. I hope I'm not getting too far in the weeds here, but the amortization period is a total of 40 years. And then the leases need to convert to an improved lease rate. So it's a recognition that that hangar investment has already been amortized, and the FAA expects us to then charge some additional amount that would recognize that we're beyond the amortization period, and the airport needs to be as self-sustaining as possible and bringing in additional revenue. And so really we took the interpretation of our grant assurances and the guidance from the FAA out as far as we possibly could. So that's where the 40-year mark comes from. The improved lease rate will be a pretty simple calculation of the current ground rent, which is adjusted every 3 years through a market survey, plus a percentage of the real market value as recognized by the Lane County Assessor's Office. And so that percentage that we'll be applying to the existing leaseholders is 1%. So like I said, it's just a simple calculation, whatever the ground rent rate is now plus 1% of the real market value is going to be what the improved lease rate will be. So we've had these, several meetings with folks, and that I think we've finally reached a point where this is acceptable. They understand that. The other piece would be that everyone will need to be charged based on the full development area, because that's another area where there are a lot of anomalies across the board in how people were being charged. Some were being charged for just the hangar footprint, some for the full development footprint, some uh, some other random amounts of square footage that we don't really know where it came from. And so we're standardizing that and making sure that it is the full development footprint that is what will be charged first on the ground rent and then eventually on an improved lease rate. So the goal is to make it fair for everybody and make it so everybody knows what to expect. And I think that we have reached that point with the general aviation community members that we've been working with. And so for good measure, because, we did pay a consultant for their guidance and expertise, I've kicked it back to the original consultant to just do a final review on these documents. And then we will basically publish them on our website. We will have a leasing template for both a non-commercial and a commercial lease. And the language in those does not change because, again, standardized language. And then we will be rolling out for existing hangar owners the opportunity to have a lengthy transition period. So that would look like you enter into a new lease that includes important things like updated environmental language and things like that, but will have recitals that will acknowledge however long they've owned the hangar and then spell out kind of what their amortization period then looks like before rolling to what the new standard will be. And we're going to take those on kind of the most need first. So folks that may want to sell their hangar or something like that, we'll get them going first. But then we'll just be working through that over probably the next year-long period to get anyone who wants to take advantage of that onto the new lease template and taking advantage of that transition period. People don't have to do it. They can stick with their existing lease, and then whatever is stated in their current lease term, that is what would happen at the end of their lease. So if their lease, just for an example, if their lease is supposed to end in 10 years and the lease language says, that it just ends there. The lease language generally says you have to remove your hangar. We're not asking people to remove their hangars. What we would do at that point then is just move to the improved lease rate moving forward. So pretty straightforward. I think it's taken us quite a long time to get here. I appreciate the input from folks that have provided ideas and input along the way, but I think we are just about there. So questions? Eric.
Just a quick comment. I chat with Councilor Evans from the city council every now and again. And he represents Ward 6 and Bethel and all those sorts of things. And he invariably asks me about how things are going at the airport, which is good because he's aware of those sorts of things. So that's good. And he said he's heard some concerns about all of this. It's obviously very complicated, and I'm sure it creates a certain amount of consternation because it's such a big change and so forth. But I didn't go into, we talked about it. I didn't go into the technical details. I'm not qualified to do that. I mean, I understand everything you say. Each sentence I understand, and then when you move on to the next sentence and, I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts. That's all. And so I didn't feel I should do that. But I did try to express my opinion that the process you're going through is very robust and thoughtful and thorough and all those sorts of things. And I think he felt reassured by that. I don't think it's a huge concern, but he does hear from some of the tenants out here. So.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. So as you can see here on the report for March, our operations slightly up over last March. But then if you look at air carrier landings, they were down. So that's just a gauging an aircraft kind of flip-flop that goes on there. So the market as a whole, not just in Eugene, is pretty soft, and we're seeing some reductions. So for us here, we're 5% down from March of last year. Year to date, 2% on plane passengers, really similar numbers on our total passengers. So down 1%. So we're pretty flat. And hoping that, the economic kind of turmoil that's going on right now doesn't continue that trend. Load factors are staying strong though. So the flights we do have, 79%, that's a strong number. And then you can see their market share, our top three, United, Alaska, Southwest, in that order, with our other airlines filling out the rest. So you figure about 3/4 of our traffic, commercial traffic, is between our top three. Air cargo has just never recovered from COVID, and so we continue to see reductions in that. Here we're looking for this month in April. Departures were down, but seat capacity slightly up, slightly flat. Again, this is really due to changes in gauge of aircraft. So seat capacity remained fairly consistent. And then if we look ahead towards August, so we're starting to get into football season kind of time frame now, so we can see airlines responding, adding seats and departures, and we would expect to see that through the fall and the winter, especially with the Big Ten effect. And here's an eye chart for you again on load factor comparisons. You can see Eugene is highlighted there. And I always like to look towards the bottom there with how we compare against Redmond, third from the bottom, and Medford. And you can see we're right in line. We're a little bit softer so far this year, but still a healthy 74%. And then turning away from commercial to our general aviation comparisons. So on the left there, you see our local traffic. So you can see our local traffic is pretty significant increase there, especially over last year, but even the year before. So our GA traffic is healthy here, our local GA traffic. And you compare us with Medford, Redmond, and Boise. Redmond and Boise just have a different GA kind of picture just due to their geographical locations. And then on the right there, we have our itinerant, so non-local GA traffic. You can see we're pretty consistent. We're pretty stable, and that's mirrored really across the region. And then I'd be happy to take any questions. Oh, did we miss that? Okay. Yeah, so air service development. So we have, how are we getting feedback? We recently had good conversations with our airline partners. We actually did a headquarters visit to United Airlines, really stressing the importance of Chicago for us now, especially being in the Big Ten. We came away from that meeting feeling like, yes, they get it, but it's really about aircraft allocation and fitting it into their schedule as a whole. But I think, Catherine, you can tell me if you disagree, but really feel that we have a really strong chance of getting Chicago in the near term. Really hopeful for that. And so, as the only the only fly Big Ten school to not have direct service to Chicago, where the headquarters for the Big Ten is, I think we have a strong case. And to be honest, the numbers showed Chicago as a viable route before the Big Ten. So the Big Ten is just, the icing on the cake that just makes it really obvious. So I'd say other than that, the airlines were, they're keeping flights here. We're getting the regular increases over the summer as we normally do. So I'd say we're doing pretty well when it comes to air service development. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the financial report. Stephanie.
Okay, so Operating revenues are 26% above where our budget for this year and trending 11% above fiscal year 24 year to date. The operating expenses are 2% above budget and 5% above fiscal year 24 year to date. This is due to certain costs associated with personnel. We had a salary adjustment back in June of 23, and then we also have some vacant positions that have been filled that have kind of moved those numbers around. Materials and services are under budget, but in line with prior year actuals. And we also had a mild winter this year, so we didn't have as many winter weather product purchases. Capital, we did just purchase 2 Toyota Tacomas, and then we had a utility tractor, metal detectors, zero-turn mowers, herbicide tank replacement, and some radios that we purchased. There might be some other items that are coming to end of life that we'll purchase towards the end of this year, this fiscal year. And we'll see those over the next couple months. And we are currently sitting at a $4.8 million operating budget, which is pretty good. Going to the next slide. This is the revenues. And as we can kind of see here, March of 25, our revenues for the month are about 1 million above that of March 24. This is because we had in March, we had some airline settlements, some reconciliations of accounts due to rates and charges structure. And we had some invoicing that we did for that we haven't normally done in the past. So that was about $944,000. So that bumped that number up quite a bit. We are also, I'll just throw this in here now since I'm talking about it. We are also looking to work on a new rates and charges model with our airline partners so that we can kind of work towards not having this kind of settlement happen in the future. We would like to keep it more stable so that we aren't surprising our airline partners with this uncertainty in financial flow. And then for the continuing on revenues, compared to February the prior month, 2025, revenues in March were about 800,000 higher. For expenses, expenses are slightly higher in March of 25 as compared to 24. And then compared to February, they are also slightly higher. So we're kind of just trending right now on that. And then going to the net cumulative gain and loss without relief grant. This again, we see a huge spike up. This is again a gain of about 1.1 million compared to last month. So again, taking into account those revenues that we received from the airline partners, make that about 944,000. So it's about 100,000 increase if we were to correct for that specific occurrence. Are there any questions?
So maybe I will just add a little bit on to the airline reconciliation. So, you know, for the past 5 years, it's been a weird environment, right? So we gave a lot of relief to our airline partners to keep them afloat, to utilize a lot of the relief grants that we had. So it was basically a flow through to keep everybody alive. And you'll also remember we had concessions relief also that we flowed through to make sure we still had concessions coming out of the pandemic. But the goal going into that had been, we had always just kind of written off, it's not technically the right word, but essentially written off this amount that the airlines should have been giving back to the airport in a reconciliation process. So we wanted to make sure we were capturing that because that's actually our bottom line, and being as fiscally as responsible as we can be. But we also needed to fix the way we had that rate structure. And so that's why we worked through this new rate model so that hopefully now moving forward, we won't see a big spike like that. Like it will normalize. So we shouldn't see large amounts having to go back or for, you know, between us or the airline at the end of the fiscal year in the future. So that was the goal around taking care of that. Okay, So let's move on then, if there's not any questions, to project updates. Mariah and Kiave.
All right, so starting off with runway 34 right drainage improvements. This project, let's see, where are we at? This project has been out to bid for a little bit. We had two bidders for the project, Wildish and Whitaker Construction. Both of them came in with decent bids. Wildish was the lowest bidder, coming in at 2.78% above engineer's estimate, which is pretty sweet. We have sent them a notice of intent to award a couple of days ago. So right now we're in what's called the protest period. So we have about a week to allow Whitaker Construction to give protest to the project. But once that week is up, Wildish has been selected, and we're going to move forward with getting a construction submittal, starting to review their construction materials, and getting ready for actual construction. Currently doing the permitting. We're expecting this project to actually get going somewhere around mid-September of this year. That's it.
Okay, next project here is the Concourse A expansion. This here is an interior image of what it will look like as you come up the escalators here. So you'll have behind that fogged barrier, you'll have the additional seating area, and then still keeping that walkway the same down to A gates on the right side of the image. Here's a picture of the interior, right? Again, main goal of this project is to add additional seating and just general capacity for our existing facility. We've touched on this a few times, before, but this really is just going to allow for a enhanced passenger experience with the improved facilities and just more space. A cool factor that we enjoy about this area is we're planning to have some monitors in here that will have a live view of kind of your gates, so kind of live screening your gates. Something we think will allow passengers to relax, wait for their flight in this area without feeling that, that stress of not being seated right near your gate. Additional images of the interior. Looking towards the west, again, as if you're sitting in the new area, looking towards these existing tailwind concessions. This is an image of the exterior here. Again, so this is if you're standing at gate B1, kind of looking to the north, you have that additional expansion area, again, for more seating and just additional capacity for the airport. And then here's a view from the north side. So why we are showing this area here is, as you see, there will be a walkway out to an ADA lift. So originally, as we've shown in previous images, we had a ADA ramp. That proved to be very costly, very large, and also would impact where the future Concourse C is going to come out from the existing terminal. This solution still gave us the achievement of being able to get passengers and employees out of the second story in the case of elevators not working or not being accessible. And then also was a cost-effective solution while staying within our initial scope of the project and then our grant guidelines as well. So back on that project, we're going to be starting construction in September. We're thinking mid-September for construction. A big part of that reason is because of the next project here. The Concourse A expansion will be done in 2 phases. Again, you kind of saw the interior, that building expansion, then also there will be some that north side work as well. So as we get further into it, we're excited to show you guys more pictures and have updates throughout construction.
All right, Concourse A asphalt rehab. This project has been going through slight changes since we've met and talked last month. All of the phases will remain the same, so I don't want to freak anybody out with that regard, but we've found a way to do 2 phases at the same time, which will save us a little bit of time and a little bit of money, which is really nice. We're also trying to look at even though the project is broken up into 8 phases, now trying to group these phases into 2 larger groups that we're calling schedules. Long story short, we're trying to line up these schedules with federal funding as it comes, and if it comes. That's something that we're still trying to work on with the FAA, is trying to understand when and if federal funding is going to come and how that's going to impact this project. And so we've had to split the project up accordingly to try and be flexible with that. With that, the project has been receiving bids from contractors. We open bids tomorrow. So tomorrow is when we're going to get a good look at, one, how much this project is going to realistically cost us for construction, but two, who we're going to be working with for the next few months during the summer to get this thing done. So hopefully that all goes well, and we'll get a realistic look at what those 2 schedules are going to start looking like. I think that's everything I have as far as that goes. Oh, sorry, can we go back one more thing? Just wanted to confirm for everybody that we had settled on a construction start date of June 16th. So I know that I talked about 2 different schedules. Ideally, if we don't have to split everything up and if we can run everything from start to end, that would put us at an end date of September 20th. Again, we're not going to keep the end date in stone, as we need to be flexible with federal funding. All right, that's it. Old car wash. All right. So this project has been moving along in design. We've been slowly but surely kind of expanding the project to capture everything that we need as far as providing rental car area and also providing spaces for our employees. Also just trying to take an extra look at all sidewalks and walkways and making sure that everything within and touching the project is as up to shape as it can be. And so we've been updating design and upgrading the project as it goes. We're currently waiting on 90%, I believe, which we should receive in a couple of weeks. And we'll have a much more flushed out version of what the design is going to look like then.
This project here, so moving away from construction for the season, right? We're looking into design. A key point to point out with all of our projects, right? When one project's in construction or preparing for construction, we have 3 more in design and then more in the environmental and planning process. So it's always kind of a revolving door of different projects at different phases. So as we look away from construction from this season, and then, upcoming season, so next year. This project is our outbound baggage expansion project. I know we talk a lot about our Concourse C expansion and enabling projects, and this is one of them, one of the bigger ones, in fact. This project we're currently in design on. We're kind of revisiting what type of bag handling technology we're going to be using. As you can see in the images, part of this will be kind of a covered building for the screening area, and then the bag makeup will be under a canopy. This was designed or initially designed to look at trying to save costs and then also look at what our neighbors down south in Medford did. So we're kind of pulling from that and then also using what's best for EUG and then also what fits best for us for expanding in the future. Again, so this is in design now, expected to be complete this summer. As we talk with the Concourse A expansion, we have money from the federal government from an ATP grant. That next round of funding becomes available again this July. So this is the project that we will be applying for those funds for. We will keep everybody updated as time goes on and as we get more renderings and more information. But for now, just in design and kind of chugging along.
EV chargers. All right. So this is a design project as well, where we've been looking at the design for putting in EV charging stations, and a connected solar array on the east end of the long-term lot. This project is about to be wrapped up. We've received 100% and given them our comments. So it's getting to the point where we're kind of ready to put this design on the shelf until we're ready to take it down and build it. And with that milestone, we were hoping to kind of give a more deeper dive and presentation into this project, just to give the AAC some clarity. We've been bringing it up for a while, and now that we've kind of wrapped everything up, we'd like to give a decent synopsis of what's been going on. Our consultants usually, you can go back really quick, Randy. Sorry. Yeah, our consultants usually give us long, really serious, really dull kind of project names for this one. It's long-term electrical vehicle parking development. Affectionately, we've just been calling this EV chargers or the EV charger project. Now we can go ahead. So where this all started was with a grant. We knew that we wanted EV chargers. The Oregon Department of Energy has a couple of CREP grants, is what they're called. CREP standing for Community Renewable Energy Program. They provide grants for community renewable energy projects. And there's actually a little more to it. It was kind of hard to squeeze everything on here without making it too bloated with text. But the short of it is that there are two kinds of programs that the Oregon Department of Energy is trying to fund with these grants. One is a resiliency program and a resiliency projects, which we've actually focused on a different project we're working on with RSNH. I believe that Chris Dwyer gave us a presentation here either last month or a couple of months ago regarding our resiliency project. This is the grant that we're focusing on from the renewable energy branch of this program that they've set up. So a renewable energy system as defined requires one, that the system produces renewable energy, and two, that it's connected that renewable energy into either an energy storage system, a vehicle charging station, or microgrid enabling technologies. As I said prior, we'd been focusing on a project that allowed us to install EV chargers. So these requirements of a vehicle charging station paired with some sort of renewable energy system lined up with our needs. Go ahead, Randy. So before we could apply for this grant, and also before we can dig into the actual design, we needed to define a scope. We needed to set ourselves some high-level boundaries of what we're looking for out of this project. One thing we knew is that EV charging is a must, right? That's definitely something that we were trying to focus on this whole time. Another thing is that we really needed to hone in on what kind of renewable energy source that we're talking about here, because this has some really big impacts into both the cost of the project and the location and generally the feasibility of it moving forward. Finally, though, one of the things that we had to consider when we're setting high-level scope is understanding grant limits, which is my very polite way of basically saying how much is everything going to cost, because the grant is only going to provide so much money for design, and it's only going to provide so much money later. They have a separate grant for construction, and that's a very clear boundary that we need to focus on. Discussing all of these things, we walked away with a couple of key points that helped us define a scope to apply for the grant and then start talking to our consultants. One was we identified a location, which I feel like I should have addressed better here in this picture. The fun little triangle to the far east and the long-term lot seemed like the best place to install both EV chargers and to give us a little landscape room to put in whatever renewable energy source that we were hoping to provide. We also had a brief discussion on different renewable energy sources that we could realistically tie to EV chargers and what kind of programs that we could install out on the airport. Kind of felt like the FAA wouldn't be too jazzed about wind turbines being put up on the airport. Nuclear power wasn't feasible in any regard. I talked about hydroelectricity. My understanding is if the beavers out there can build dams that dam up the stormwater channels, then I don't see why we can't. But the most feasible and realistic option was to put stormwater panels within the triangle landscape area, which was not only is it the most flexible in terms of fitting in the space, but it was also the most reasonable in terms of pricing. Next slide. So here's where we're at as far as design goes. I took a snip out of the 100% plans. This is the most detailed, and it comes from the electrical plans, so it's not as flashy, and it's a little more technical than I think I'd like, but it helps kind of distribute what we're looking at here. Gosh, I wish I had a laser pointer. Andrew, one sec. I can just point. I'm tall enough. I think I can reach. So these fun black rectangles here are all of the 6 dual chargers that we were hoping to install. So that'll give us 12 ports in total. The array option that we went with, we had multiple options as far as an array and the total power that we could output to help connect to these chargers. The array option that we went with, the engineers titled the 24 kilowatt net metered plan. So this consists of 3 solar arrays that are 40 feet wide by 10 feet long, or 40 feet long by 10 feet wide, however you want to measure it, that are set up at this angle here. A glare study had to be done to make sure that we're capturing the most solar radiation that we can without causing any glint or glare into the air traffic control tower, which can get kind of finicky depending on where you're putting these panels. With This array, we are able to, as the label describes, generate 25 kilowatts of power. That's in the ideal setting. So as you talk to people who generate solar panels and set up these plans, what you find out with solar panels is they like to label things based on its max power or its ideal setting. So when we say 25 kilowatt plan, what we're really talking about is on a great sunny day, we're getting 25 kilowatts of power coming out of those solar panels. The net meter generation portion, what that means is that there's no battery storage here. So all of the electricity that's being generated from these solar panels is being used immediately. And that means it's either being used immediately by the EV chargers if they're being used, or it's being sent back into eWeb and then we get a credit for the power. There are many options there for how many solar arrays we can put up, how much power we can get out of it. It started getting finicky in terms of our bounds and constraints, how much money we would have to put in order to get money out of the grant in terms of buying a bunch of solar panels. But also eWeb has this really interesting plan where if we start generating too much power from solar panels, we have to start sending everything back to them. And it really started to cut the ties of the resiliency portion of this project where the solar panels are directly connected and directly power the EV chargers. A final point being all other successful grants for ODOE have been doing net meter generation and not direct generation as I described. So we wanted to succeed. So that was the plan that we went with. Just finally kind of diving into the two little technical bits of equipment that were installed or planning to install. For EV chargers, we went with Blink. So Blink is the third largest network and third largest EV charger program that's out here in America. Third largest is kind of an ambiguous title. I wasn't going to sit here and put up all the numbers and the map to different tell. I think a fair analogy would be kind of similar to saying that you're on the third largest phone network in America. It's still extremely viable, and the reason that that's important is because you want to use a system that has really good communication with all other systems out there, but also for physical, you want to make sure that you have a system where you can have people who are out to maintain your system. So you want to make sure that you have a strong program presence. You want to make sure you have a strong company presence that you're going with so that it's easy to maintain and it easily communicates and easily updates the software as needed. The reason we went with Blink is because it was still extremely viable as far as a network goes compared to the other two, ChargePoint and Tesla, which are the leading brands, but it's half the cost. So same functionality for half the cost was a great win for us. For anyone interested in the solar panel option, we went with QCell. When you look at QCell and their marketing, a lot of what they like to say is they're designed for weather and they're weatherproofing, which again, I'm learning a lot about solar panel marketing with this project. What they really mean is that they're actually really efficient at capturing solar radiation. So they're designed to be in areas like Oregon where we get a lot of rain and we get a lot of overcast, and the push for everything is how much solar radiation can we capture to maximize the efficiency of our space. So it's designed for weather and that's what they push, but what that really means in the solar panel world is really high solar radiation capture, but it's also designed to be really long lasting, which again for us is a boon. We were trying not to go for an option that had a lot of high maintenance costs as we're trying to reduce costs across the board here. So we decided to go with QCell. And I think that is everything. If you have any questions, now is a good time. Otherwise I can sit down. Yeah, what's up?
I have a few questions and comments. So one and a suggestion. One, we have several EV chargers on campus, and we have a horrible experience of thieves coming and cutting all the cables. They take them, and we've replaced them multiple times. So one suggestion is look into the, which we have found, and I can connect you with the people that found them, the protected cables that are in a retractable format, and you have to release it in order to use it. So something to think about because they're very expensive to replace once they are stolen for copper. Two is I was just going to ask if it's what level of charger it is. Level 2 charger, I'm assuming. Or
Level 2 charger. Yeah, I apologize for not putting that in there.
So how do we manage someone coming and leaving their car here for a week plugged in? What do you do to open that charger back up for another customer?
That is a great question. I hate to say this, but I've really just been focusing on more of the design, and I think that sounds like more of a parking management question. If anybody related to parking management wants to jump on this one for me, that would be awesome. Otherwise, I don't have much to give you.
I did figure that wasn't going to be in your purview.
So we've talked about, we do have the ability to move cars, and we have these little wheel dolly things that we can do it. It's not necessarily the best thing that we want to be doing, but it's possible that we could do something like that, or we could also have some sort of concierge service. So haven't quite gotten there yet because we're just
Yeah,
really in the
if you
planning phase.
install them. I mean, you could charge your car in 8 hours and you don't want them sitting there 2 weeks or something. Last question is Blink charges an hourly or a per kilowatt rate. Who gets that charge? Who's going to take that money?
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten there yet either, but we will definitely build in a way to capture the cost of the energy that we're paying for, right? So, yeah.
Well, hopefully you won't be paying for energy. It'll be all sun driven.
Hopefully, yes, right.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you've got 6 dual stations. How many kilowatts minimum do you need to charge 12 cars at a time?
As in, how many kilowatts of power do we need to charge 12
You said your
cars?
It's going to be able to, peak power out is about 25 kilowatts. How much do you need minimum to charge 12 cars at a time?
Ooh, that's a great question. I honestly, man, I'm not sure. I can get back to you though. If you give me your email address, I'll pencil out the math and I can get it to you.
Just curious.
Yeah, that is honestly a great question. I think when we were going through design, I don't think it's something where we went through where we assumed all these ports are going to be filled and we need to charge them all the time. I think it was really, again, a focus was how can we dip our toe into starting EV chargers, getting on the airport, and maybe connecting them to a renewable energy source, and more importantly, sticking within the bounds of the grant that Oregon Department of Energy is giving us for this regard. I would love to be able to power as many EV chargers as we can and charge as many cars as we can, but it wasn't the direct focus of the design, unfortunately. Again, if you give me your email address, I can get the math and I can get it to you.
Well, I'm not worried about actually charging 12 cars at a time. It is a question of capacity, and you don't have any battery storage. So that means, when the sun is high, you'll have pretty good capacity, but as the sun starts to go down, you won't. So just a thought.
No, that's a great question. And I think it's something to keep in mind, right? This is all just design. We're not really committed to actually build all of this yet. And we're still kind of keeping our options open, as you said, on what are we actually retaining from this design if we move forward with this grant. Yes, we're getting the money from the Oregon Department of Energy, but is this actually worth the money that we're putting in as well? So there's still stuff that we're trying to balance. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, the plan is we have a good plan that the Oregon Department of Energy has paid for with the grant for planning. And the hope is that if it's good enough and we like it and it seems financially feasible, then we can get the Oregon Department of Energy to help pay for construction as well.
Understood. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. So.
No, that's why I'm standing up here.
I think it's tied into EWEB anyway. So they're not going to generate enough power from that array to power 12 vehicles. But EWEB will supplement that and you get a benefit from whatever you're generating.
Yeah, no matter what comes out of the solar, all 12 chargers will work at the same time.
Thanks so much, Gabby.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to be too controversial here, but all the news trends today are showing that all the automotive manufacturers are backpedaling on electric as fast as they can go. We're seeing the same trend from federal. Is this still a valid project?
Well, we're in the grant, right? So we're going to execute on the planning grant. But yeah, we'll definitely be monitoring all of that and seeing, because this is just for the planning. We don't have to pull the trigger on the next grant application, nor do we have to pull the trigger on construction. We can make those decisions, as we go reach each milestone. Okay, very good. So next up, we've got Jody McNatt, who's our operations manager. She's going to be giving us an overview of the airport operations and training program. Jody.
Well, hello. You can just jump. So the biggest question is for airport operations is what is it really? Who are we? What is it that we really do? So hopefully this can provide a little bit of clarity for those questions. So as you all are aware, we are governed by multiple agencies, not only just the city of Eugene, but the state of Oregon and also the FAA, Federal Administration, Aviation Administration. We also act as liaisons between agencies that operate at the airfield. One is Air Traffic Control Tower. I'm a liaison between the airport and the tower. FAA Technical Operations, those are the people that maintain all of our navigational aids in the field that the FAA owns, not Eugene. National Safety Transportation Board, that is if we have any aircraft incidents or accidents that occur on the field, we act as a liaison between the operator of the aircraft, emergency services, and the NTSB. Flight Standards District Offices, that's basically FSDO. They handle all safety issues that occur in aviation for flight standards. And also, we are a conduit for the DoD. We handle mobilization, demobilizations, that sort of thing. So they contact me to coordinate that on my side of the fence. Otherwise, they'll choose an FBO to operate out of. And then also local, state, or federal agencies, depending on the situation. They ask us a lot of questions, depending on the day. So right now, we have 6 full-time airport operations duty officers. We have a vacancy right now that we are currently working on filling. And we have approximately 22 trained support personnel scattered throughout the airport that's distributed from the airfield maintenance team, our ground transportation team, and terminal maintenance. We are a 24-hour operation, and so we are staffed accordingly. So we are essentially the first responders of the airport. We respond to basically any incident or accident that may occur, whether it's aircraft accidents, incidents, anything involving the public. So fall on the escalator or someone hitting our building with a vehicle or whatever. We respond to all of those so we can report the issue. Wildlife strikes, we are the reporters for that. We have to file a report with the FAA for each one, so we do all the things that they require for that program. Field and weather conditions, we monitor all the weather conditions that's occurring on the field and also trending. So anything that's coming at us, we try to stay above it and beyond it. That way we can react a little bit better. That way we can get reinforcements on the field sooner than later. That way we don't come into a situation where we have to close. We can try to maintain operations as much as possible. We handle airside driving violations, radio communication failures, and hazardous materials spills. So like I said, we're 24/7 coverage. We will monitor airfield maintenance and construction, airport activity support. We also handle low visibility operations, tenant activities, aircraft equipment parking, emergency incident response, etc. Okay, so my department is responsible for upholding and enforcing all of these manuals that we have to follow. So we are an airport certificated airport. Therefore, we have an airport certification manual. That basically is our agreement with the FAA on how we're going to operate our airport to ensure that we're meeting FAA 139 regulations. Within that plan, we have an airport emergency plan. We have wildlife hazard management plan, snow and ice control plan, safety management system plan that is actually in the process of being written for implementation and approval this summer. Surface movement guidance control system, that's SMIGS, that's essentially low visibility operations. We have personnel and training records and retention. We review FAA circulars, 139 certification inspectors that come on site to make sure that we are following the rules and doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. And also we undergo a SMIGS plan audit and review, and that is also through the FAA. So state of Oregon, we assist Mariah with the environmental piece. We respond to the spills under our spill prevention, control, and countermeasurement plan, stormwater pollution plan, and occupational safety and health administration. So if we have any fuel spills, lav cart spills, we respond to those and we ensure that we are doing all the things that we can to meet state regulations. So how do we keep up? It's a lot. Right now, anything electronic is our friend. We are moving away from one reporting system and entering a new system that is hopefully going to encompass more of what is needed for the airport wide, not just airport operations, but we can incorporate facilities maintenance, airfield maintenance, the administrative side, and that sort of thing. So we have several different training categories. Also to keep up, like today is a recurrent training day. Our topic today is emergency management. So each month we have a topic. We have vehicle operations and training, tower communications, low visibility operations, winter ops, wildlife management. Those are the core competencies that we have to meet each year. And this is where I kind of skipped ahead a little bit about the new reporting system that we have. We also use web-based reporting systems through the FAA, also through vendors. We just implemented a program called Go Apron. That's how we work with our airline partners on parking in our, our ramps, our challenge with having a limited footprint. And also it's helps us base what our future departmental goals are so we can kind of gauge what needs to improve. And then, like I said, today we have a monthly employee training. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Any questions about operations and training? Okay, Natalie.
Okay, committee members, any open discussion, questions, comments from the room? Okay, opening the floor to guests. Any final comments from anyone? With that, then we will thank you all for your time and adjourn.